Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on document automation and specifically how SME law firms can leverage the solution for a competitive advantage. So just to give you an idea of the structure for today's session, we'll start off by introducing you to the panel that we've got here today, and then just sort of talk you through the background to document automation and where it sits within the marketplace. Move on to discuss actually what document automation is and why people are bringing in document automation to their firms. And then we'll be discussing some of the actual challenges and the ways in which we implement automation, and then the key considerations to bring to the table when actually choosing a solution. So we will actually address questions towards the end of the session. So as we're running through, if we talk about things that you want to make a particular question about, just save that for the end of the session, and we'll open up the question to the attendees. You can answer questions using the Q&A section on your WebEx. You'll see a little Q&A section. Just type your questions in there, and we'll pick those up and run through them at the end. Okay, so just to introduce the panel, we're very lucky to be joined today by some of our customers who are actually implementing Contract Express. So we can actually talk about our solution and the considerations, within the context of a real solution. So I think I'll hand you over initially to Martin from Kerman Co to introduce himself and his expertise.
Hi, I'm Martin O'Donoghue. I'm a partner in the corporate department of Kerman Co, a legal practice based in London, and I'm leading the implementation of document automation software within the corporate team.
Hi everyone, my name is Graeme Hay. I'm a business consultant advising law firms on workflow and document automation, and also the co-founder of Lightwork business.
Hi, I'm Roxanne Selby. I'm head of strategy for our smaller law firms here at Thomson Reuters. So I'm responsible for defining our strategy and proposition to ensure that our services meet the needs of those firms. I've been working in the legal information and software industry for 16 years, and I'll shortly be beginning a training contract at Knights in Oxford.
Thank you. My name is Catherine Kidd. I'm going to be moderating the session today. I'm one of our customer success managers, so I spend my day-to-day life actually helping firms implement Contract Express once they've procured it. Okay, so first off, I'm going to hand over to Roxanne, who's just going to talk to us a little bit about the marketplace and the environment that our SME firms are currently working within.
Thank you. Yes, so this is really some background, setting out the context as to why firms might want to consider document automation as a solution. Here at Thomson Reuters, we conduct various surveys and initiatives with our customers to understand the challenges that they're facing and how we develop our solutions to address some of the pain points. So the slide here actually shows the results of a wide survey that we did at the end of last year. We received over 400 responses from firms with 1 to 50 fee earners, which I think represents about 97% of all firms they do, and 25% of total billings. We asked them to tell us about their key challenges, and this slide is really showing us on the left the challenges that they told us that they were facing, and then on the right a bit more detail about some of the challenges that they listed as their top challenges. So the second greatest challenge that they've listed for us was about serving matters profitably and clients profitably. And it's interesting that was the second greatest challenge, as often we're told actually that's the biggest challenge, because people have the work but too little time to do it. So in some ways, the ordering of the challenges may reflect survey demographics. So obviously for very small firms dealing with private clients, there may be more of a one-off transactional element. But in addition to factors such as financial management, fee models, etc., technology is a key way of addressing this challenge of profitability. And given the core nature of drafting, and that we're told that many lawyers feel that they don't have time to check their work properly, obviously automating that process is a key way in which technology can help. We're also told though by the firms that they're using technology not just to free up their time and increase profitability, but to address some of the other challenges here on the slide, perhaps less so the recruitment element. But features such as those we'll come on to discuss can also increase collaboration and improve your client relationships, and retention can be used as a selling point to new clients. So I think it would be interesting to know perhaps Graeme and Martin's experience and whether some of these challenges actually fit with their experience and why they've adopted Contract Express.
Well, I think from a practical point of view, attracting new and valuable clients is something that many law firms have a difficulty with, and it remains challenging for Kerman in the same way as most other law firms. The market at the minute is fairly competitive. There's been a lot of new entrants in recent years, particularly from transatlantic firms and from some southern hemisphere firms. There is a lot of new business models operating in the market at the minute, and there has been a significant increase in the use of technology within the market as well. All of that has led to an increase in competition, which makes it a little more difficult to actually attract what we would consider to be valuable clients. That's especially so when you consider that many of the legal firms out there have very limited differentiation between their services, so it becomes a little more difficult for clients to choose one particular firm over the other. When you combine that with changes in buyer behavior, such as clients becoming a lot more price savvy, demanding lower fees, obtaining legal quotes and taking work in-house, all of that culminates to make it more difficult to attract new and valuable clients to firms. From our point of view, I think more challenging than that is probably the second point that you've raised, which is serving clients profitably. A key part of our strategy at the minute is to improve the efficiency around the way in which we provide services to our existing client base and obviously new clients as well. We see that as a key driver behind managing things like work in progress, response time to clients, and also retaining clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone will hopefully read this and they'll just be nodding their heads from that point of view. And technology, I think, is just, as we'll come to probably more further, it's a key way to try and solve a lot of these matters, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not just put something in and job done. It's a consistent thing, and this, I mean, I'm sure you're seeing this across all sectors at the moment rather than just legal. I don't think there's any out there that I think anyone will disagree with, hopefully.
Yeah, so this slide again really continues from the theme of the previous one about some of the reasons that firms might want to look at using document automation. I mean, again, as Martin touched on, it feels like a bit of a no-brainer. What we're seeing is a landscape where there has been good growth for lawyers over recent years. If you read things like the NatWest legal benchmarking reports, you know, we've seen positive years of growth. We've seen average growth for firms of 11% over 2015 and 16. This is very, very much backed up by our own research with small and medium-sized firms who've been very, very optimistic. But I think what we're seeing now is a very competitive marketplace where firms are having to work harder to deliver, or as we were discussing the other day, they're having to work differently and more effectively to deliver. We're told that cash flow and profitability are big issues. The same NatWest legal benchmarking survey I was really interested to see shows that on average lawyers are only doing 3.9 hours of billable work per day, which I find terrible. So clearly, efficiency, it's got to be an area of focus, and technology is something that surely has got to be able to help with this. But it's interesting. I mean, I think 75% of firms in one of our surveys told us that technology is a core part of their business strategy. But obviously, what we're finding is there's a massive gap between what firms are saying and what they're actually doing and what they're delivering. Likewise, there's underuse of solutions that are in place. And while we're seeing lots of interest from small and mid-sized firms about document automation, you know, there are not a lot yet who are like Kerman's in the position of actually using it and showing success from it. So there's a massive, massive opportunity for people to use it to provide, you know, a more accurate service, a swifter service, a more efficient service, and also to differentiate from the other firms who are slower off the mark, I think. So I don't know, is that matches with your...
I think it's broadly correct. I think the point up there that's quite interesting to me is clients driving change. I I did talk a moment ago about some changes in client behaviour. What I didn't mention was changes in client expectation. The reality is a lot of clients are using technology in their own businesses to reduce costs and to improve the efficiency in their own services. And ultimately, they expect that lawyers will do exactly the same with the provision of their service and eventually pass on that cost saving to their own clients. We have seen over the last 2 or 3 years increased spend within law firms in terms of technology spend. One would expect that a large part of that spend is going towards improving the efficiency of the services they provide. And Kerman's is no different. We've certainly increased the spend in terms of technology. We use technology from the mode client approaches the firm. We carry out KYC checks using technology. We use technology to prepare documents, to deal with marketing, deal with accounting, and we see technology as a major part of our firm's long-term strategy.
I think just following on from that, I mean, being a bit biased and being a technologist to a degree, the fourth point there is a differentiator now. I mean, you just need to look at our general behaviour in the e-commerce market in terms of one of the sort of key standards that we've got is site loading speed in terms of less than 2 seconds, people are away. Now, I'm not comparing e-commerce to legal, but that sort of impatience, I think, just feeds through into everyday life and expectations of every sector now. And occasions now where technology is almost the only way to provide that consistency and speed of service that people are looking for. The humans are great, but there are certain things that technology is the thing that needs to be used to dealing with it. And again, just coming back to sort of e-commerce examples where firms are now, when people are online, they're live trying to profile that user from that perspective. And as I say, that's not law, but it doesn't take long for that sort of expectation and patience to sort of spread through other sectors and expectations.
I think one of the things that surprised me when I saw this was the fact that so many firms did consider technology as part of their business strategy. And as Roxanne said, actually, the reality of that often, we hear people talking about that, but we don't necessarily see that happening. So, Martin, you mentioned that it is a part of your strategy. So, obviously, that strategy is coming to reality because you're using lots of different solutions. So, what do you think is kind of the key differentiator there between what Kerman's are doing to bring that strategy to life and what might be happening where other people are sort of talking about it?
I think the big thing for us is having support at management level. So we have a managing partner that stands behind the entire automation process. We also then have myself within the corporate team who is driving it on the ground level. And by that, I mean literally we would do internal presentations, we would knock on doors, find out whether or not people are using the software, find out what their experiences are, and feed all of that back and make improvements. And I think when you can ultimately report back then to your fellow partners and also to staff, that you're actually making cost savings, and they can see that they are able to produce documents a lot quicker, respond a lot quicker. It helps with the actual implementation process because people buy into the concept.
And I think it's just part of it is you've got to make the lawyer's life easier from that point of view, and there's no point, and I'm sure we've all been part of technology projects where it's thrown out and then just expectation to use it. If it's not making the lawyer's life easier, then there's not going to be buy-in from that point of view. And then if certain things aren't working, we've got to try and answer that question in the positive and maybe change approach, whether it's different documents, different matters, type of matters we're focusing on. But I think there's an agility there that I think needs to be part of.
And I think one of the key things that we did from the very outset was choose documents that we knew people would use quite quickly. So we started off with an engagement letter, for example, as being the first document we automated, because we knew that for every single piece of work we did, we had to generate an engagement letter. So we got that buy-in from the very outset. I think that was key as well.
Great. So essentially, it's just about making sure you've got buy-in from the top that's been really communicated down to the business, that you've got a clear kind of targeted strategy for maximum impact, and then being able to kind of demonstrate tangible results from what you're implementing. So I think that sort of leads us quite nicely into actually talking about, specifically what is document automation. So The idea of document automation is that you can use a technology platform to generate first drafts of documents. And so these tools are typically made up of an initial phase where you take your existing content, so your precedent templates, and you turn those into automated online questionnaires. So when the fee earner is looking to actually generate a new document, rather than going to the last version that they made, copying and pasting out the different client names, they go through this online questionnaire. They fill in the questions, and the questionnaire sort of dynamically responds to the options that they're picking. And at the end of that, it generates a first draft of potentially not only one document, but an entire suite of documents that works for that transaction. So then the lawyer can download those documents and continue to work and bespoke on those documents for that particular client need. So that's kind of specifically what document automation is. And I think one of the misconceptions about document automation is that it's something that can be used only for large law firms that are dealing with things in significant volume. I think document automation is applicable for anything which is kind of a standard format that you're doing any kind of repetitious work on. It's ideal for generating that first draft to then be able to go ahead and create the document. So obviously you guys are a small law firm, smaller law firm. In terms of concerns about it not being fit for the size of organisation and the volume of transaction, is that something that ever came up when you were thinking about automation?
I think there's probably been a bit of belief. I mean, there's definitely, Martin was saying, at managing partner level, and then obviously with Martin driving it as well, there is a bit of belief in it in terms of technology can make a difference. And from, I think, the sort of key point as well for us and what it's getting to, it's a first draft. It's not, I think, from my personal experience, mistakes I've made in the past is trying to get this perfect document out at the end of it. It's not that. It is get to 80% of the document there to quicker, to then get the law firm's IP into it faster. And I think that's probably the key bit. For me and from my experience, it's been get to a first draft as quickly as you can, make it as consistent and as risk-free across the firm as you can, and then add the brain power on top of that. And I think that's the key thing in terms of sometimes expectations can be too high. Mine has certainly been in the past. It doesn't work. It can be too slow. You need to get started and get stuff out there to start proving the benefits. And what will work for one firm might not necessarily work for another. Hence, you need to get started and get stuff out there and use.
Okay. So very kindly, Graeme and Martin have agreed to share with us what the actual automation process looks like at Kerman and how they've managed to put that together. So, Graeme, if you want to kind of talk us, or Martin, sorry,
I'll pick it up.
If you want to just sort of talk us through what you guys have done with your automation implementation.
Sure. So this slide actually shows two different things. It shows 5 opportunities that consist of opportunities that we're currently exploiting and those that we're planning to look at over the next couple of months. Opportunity 1 is the standard document automation type process. And what we're doing with that is we're using it in 3 different ways. We are using standard documents or templates we get directly from PLC, so basic documents like letters of resignation or things where we don't feel we need to infuse our own IP into them. We're using them as they come from PLC. We're secondly then creating semi-bespoke documents where we take the standard PLC template and infuse that with our own IP and our own know-how to make the documents more suitable to the type of work we do in the standard document we want to produce. And thirdly then, we are producing entirely bespoke documents. I mentioned the engagement letter a short time ago, but we're also doing documents like shareholders agreements and several other different documents. So that's the first opportunity that we see with that. The extension of that then can be seen in opportunity number 3, and what that involves really is creating a suite of documents as part of a single process. So if you take the example that's given, which is a SPA, which is a share purchase agreement, what we have is a scenario whereby you complete the questionnaire for the share purchase agreement, and at the same time as the software produces that document, it also produces a number of ancillary documents like letters of resignation, board minutes, share transfer forms, powers of attorney, etc. So you end up inputting the data once, but you get an entire suite of documents produced at the end of that process. That's something we've started working on, but we haven't quite got there in terms of implementing the first suite yet. An interesting part of that feature at Opportunity 3 is the approval process. You'll see icons there for a junior and senior person. The approval process allows a junior person to prepare an initial draft of that document and send the document then to a senior person for approval. That senior person then can look at the selections that a junior has made within the program itself, and then either change it or accept it or do whatever they need to do to get that document into a first form draft. The fifth opportunity then, which is the final one that's internal to the firm, is something that we will look at, as I say, over the next couple of months, but it involves using Contract Express directly to negotiate documents with lawyers that will be outside the firm, or potentially even clients that want to create documents over the course of a phone call or something like that. Turning then to Opportunity 2 and 4, and these are opportunities for using Contract Express externally. Opportunity number 2 was simply called a client pass. What that is a feature whereby we send a link to a client and ask them to complete certain information that will allow us either complete a document on their behalf or allow us to input that information directly into Contract Express itself. So it saves a lot of time, and it means that we're not toing and froing with emails. We're getting information in real time, and that information is being used in real time to actually produce the document. Opportunity 4 then is something that I think is going to be quite interesting. It involves the creation of a client portal whereby we can allow clients to come into an external portal that will sit as part of our website, and within that portal they can actually create a number of commodity type documents or sometimes more complex documents. So things like confidentiality agreements, perhaps board minutes and things like that. They can input the data, they can create their own document and take that document away with them. There's a couple of ways you can use that from a commercial point of view. You can charge clients directly on a per document basis, you can come up with some form of subscription model, or you can sell bundles of documents to clients. We're still discussing how we're going to commercialize that, but it's quite an interesting opportunity.
I mean, I think in terms of people, it's a target state from that point of view. These are, as Martin's talked through, these are the sort of 5 opportunities where we see Kerman can take advantage of. I think the key part of it is that loop there of we're analysing every questionnaire in terms of timing it, getting comments back from users as we go through it. So if it's not worked, why has it not worked? What updates do we need to put in it for the next time from that point of view? And just, as we say, as we get to the end of the process, are there opportunities we've missed from that point of view? Does Opportunity 3 not quite look at that? It looks at something different. So this is what the sort of target state looks like today, but a key part of it, I think, for us will be that continual analysis comes out to the users from terms of when it hasn't worked, and not everything will work for sure, is that we're doing something about it to make it work for the next time.
Yeah, so you're clearly taking a very sort of agile approach to it and responding to what's happening, and I think that reporting piece is, and monitoring that's quite important if we go back to the point you made earlier about being able to demonstrate the sort of tangible results from what you're getting out of the system. So, I mean, here we've got quite kind of a clear sort of roadmap for where you want to go. How do you work with and engage with the practice areas in the firm to kind of help sort of plan this and where it's going to go and select the documents that you're going to target for automation?
I think it's really just a case of having conversations with the other partners, identifying what documents we use most frequently in the department, and then just assessing what options we have in terms of automation. I mean, it's not because we're a fairly small firm, it's not an overly complex or an overly formal process. It really depends on what we need and what's going to be useful to us.
Mm-hmm. And then, so just looking at this client piece, which I think is in the marketplace right now, there's a lot of interest about delivering these sorts of services to clients. Earlier we spoke about clients driving change. Is this sort of idea being driven by clients requesting this type of service, or is this based on you guys looking at potential opportunities and how you can innovate your services for them?
I think it's based solely on the latter. I think it's us looking at opportunities. The reality is there's probably very few clients that are knocking on doors of law firms saying that we want you to automate, create external portals and things like that. We see this as a great opportunity potentially to get small startup companies, tech companies on board. It allows us to differentiate ourselves a little bit in the market and to show to the external world that we're actually embracing technology and we're using it as part of our business process. And that certainly is a good selling point for us.
Brilliant. Okay. So I think we've talked about kind of some of the key reasons why we might want to bring in document automation. I think here we've got, again, some sort of marketplace data around that.
Yeah, so yes, as you say earlier, we touched on the kind of context and the ways, and there are a number of ways in which the challenges we saw can be addressed. I mean, what we're told generally is that drafting is around 60% of lawyers' work on average. So it's an area where if it's addressed, firms can see real efficiency gains. They can push down the work to more junior people, so freeing up more senior fee earners potentially, perhaps after an implementation phase. They can collaborate more and gain that kind of competitive advantage. The number one benefit that we've been told in surveys from the last couple of years is that of reduced errors and consistency that the software can bring and increasing the quality. And then obviously the figures around time saving, and I think it'll be interesting to learn if the 82% figure on this slide matches Kerman's experience.
So we're a bit below 82%, I have to confess. So we are, based on our stats at the moment, we're at 78.5% at the moment. We're seeing that vary across documents. Some documents are more successful than others. We've got multiple £1,000s worth of savings now, having used it in the corporate department over the last few months. We've got a completion rate of 74%, with the best documents are 89%, and I think that sort of stat is where we're hoping to take advantage of the comments that come through and those ones that aren't being completed, of why they're not being completed, and then doing something about it in terms of, and that's where, if we don't do anything about it, that user is then not going to use it the next time. So in terms of they've taken that step to use it, they've identified something that they want to improve. If we then don't get into that loop of improving it, we're going to struggle the next time they engage with it. And in terms of, as I say, from a usage, people seem happy with it. We're average rating, I think 4.2 out of 5 at the moment. So there's always room for improvement. And I think that we sort of talked about a little bit, that agility of we've got to keep that going from that point of view. It's tough, I'm sure we'll come on to, and particularly in small firms, resources is tight a lot of the time. You don't always have lots of people, well, you never have lots of people floating around just to spend hours and hours on a technology project. So, as I say, when we do that, get that engagement, we've got to get that feedback and update it back into the loop. I think in terms of those sort of high-level things, in terms of risk and savings, we're starting to see that, and it's just hopefully from that base where we are, we can keep improving it and developing it from there.
And I think I'd be quietly confident that those statistics would improve over time. The reality is that as people become more accustomed to using the document software, they'll speed up in the process, they'll make more documents using that software. That will bring down the average time for creating the documents. It'll increase the cost savings that we're making. It'll improve response time and ultimately lead, I think, to a much better service from our corporate team.
You had a figure the other day about, was it a share purchase agreement or the amount of time reduction on that?
There was a shareholders agreement, so it's now it's an over 80% time saving of doing it. So and that's significantly reduced. Again, keep it to a first draft from that point of view. There's still work to be done after that, but I think we are starting to see these things. I think from my point of view, not being a lawyer, as the more people that use it, the lawyers are doing the work every day, then they start to see, and that's where we really want to try and get into that virtuous circle, for want of a better phrase, of, we go, oh right, could we use it in this way? And then I think that's where we really start to see the power of it, of where there's a bunch of documents where I think people will naturally think automation is there, but it doesn't always have to be in areas that you think automatically. There'll be other areas where people start applying it and thinking, okay, could we try it there? And yes is usually the answer from that point of view, because they've had that little bit of experience of how it works.
And in terms of that point around being able to free up some of your senior fee earners' time, is that a true reflection of kind of what's happened for you guys?
Absolutely. I mean, if you take the preparation of a draft document at the minute, usually it's delegated down to someone like an associate. At the minute, we can delegate more complex documents to those associates, but we can also delegate things to legal executives and secretaries who can simply go through the process and actually come back with a first draft that broadly reflects what we're looking for. In doing that, because we've got standardized documents that are prepared using the software, we have removed a large element of the risk. So we don't need to be so concerned about what the junior employee might do with the documents, because ultimately they're going to come back with something that we have approved at some point historically in template form. So it's certainly something that's happening in practice, and it's certainly something we're seeing savings on.
Brilliant. So I think we've touched a lot on sort of the benefits and then what people see from implementing automation. But I think certainly from people that I speak to and the people that I work with, one of their biggest concerns and biggest questions when they're looking at automation is actually how do you implement this into the firm? What are the challenges and how do you do it? So it would be great to hear about how you guys went about it, what you guys did and what the process was that you followed.
Yes, there's no. This is the hardest bit. I don't think anyone's kidding themselves from that point of view. And the main reason for Martha is change management. Change is not an easy thing. I don't think anyone who says it is kidding themselves. And it's just, as I say, the diagram, the target state, it is a diagram in terms of there's got to be ways. It's about executing that plan to try and get to that target state. Our approach has probably been around three things principally, and again there'll be things that everyone's aware of people, process, technology, and I think I would definitely put them in that order. People is critical to it in terms of Martin has been a key person in terms of driving it. Without people like him, it's much harder to get out there, and as I say, with the managing partner backing that we have, that makes a big difference from that point of view. From a process perspective, there are lots of elements to that. I think the initial bit would be start small from that point of view, get something out there. I know there's a lot of chat in startup circles about minimal viable products, etc. I think that applies to this as well. It's get something out there, get something running with people, planning it in terms of rolling it out. Even just walking the floor in terms of who's using, who's not. And then I think the final key part of that is promoting it of comms. It's out of sight, it's out of mind. From a sort of becoming shelfer point of view, we've got to try and make sure because people are busy from that point of view. Tendency is always, you're in the middle of a matter, is I'll just do what I've done before. I'll just do that. And that's a hard cycle to get out of. It's not criticism of anyone saying it, and it's just up to us in terms of picking different people at different times of where they're willing to take that sort of first step into document automation and then taking advantage of it. And then finally, from a technology point of view, the technology's got to do what you want it to do. And I think from our point of view, Contract Express is helping us do that. I think from a small firm's perspective, especially just looking at that, is there's an advantage there from the point of view of you can do things much more quickly. You don't have to tend to be tied to such a big rigorous process that tends to be found in the bigger firms. But at the same time, availability is hard. It is hard from that point of view. So there's got to be that people commitment, particularly higher up in the firm, and saying it's okay to be spending time on this and doing it from that point of view. And that sort of leads a bit into there's a bit of patience involved in terms of that ROI. If you're expecting that ROI within 2 months, it's not going to happen from that point of view. It's a direction of travel. That ROI will come. The better the implementation, the quicker it will come. But as I say, you've got to give it some time from that point of view. It's like putting Google Ads up in terms of for any service. You spend 100 quid for a month, it's not going to work. You spend 100 quid over a month for 12 months, those ads will start to see some conversion from that point of view. And it's just it's exactly the same thing here. And again, there's a bit of a mix of the legal and the technical as well. It's probably the last thing I'd say, and just it takes a bit of time, and you just got to stick at it. I think that's the, and it's, as I say, I think previously I've sort of been a bit more critical of lawyers when they've not done what seems from a technologist an obvious thing to do. But as I'm learning as well, in terms of there is that, you've got to give a bit of space sometimes in terms of picking moments to sort of crank up momentum, particularly in a small firm.
Yeah, I think that point that you made about technology, it's a technology project, but it's ultimately working with legal matter and lawyers is an interesting challenge. And Martin, it'd be quite interesting to hear from your point of view how you've kind of handled some of the cultural kind of change aspects of trying to get lawyers to engage in a technology project and kind of go on that journey with you guys.
I think the big benefit for us, again, is that we are a small firm, so we don't have to worry too much within the corporate team about cultural change and things like that. But the key aspect for us is undoubtedly getting 4 or 5 people within the department on board who are actually keen to use the software, who will do it, who will feed back, and help improve the entire process. I mean, we send out monthly reports as well to people, just illustrating what documents have been used, how many are being created, what the cost savings are. And these all play a part in just keeping the momentum going, keeping people interested in the project. And, I mean, that's really as simple as it is.
Yeah, so it's just really about making sure everyone's being really well communicated to, sharing those tangible results, but also actually, almost putting together a steering group to bring them along on that journey.
Correct.
I think one of the things that I really love about your project and having heard about it is the fact that it is so agile and that there's not that concern necessarily about making sure that it's 100% the most perfect thing. I think starting with the practical law documents, so those of you that aren't familiar with our products, we have a knowledge platform called Practical Law, which has some pre-built precedents within that. And if you have both of the products, you can actually take some of that content from Practical Law, and it's available pre-automated within Contract Express. And I think, by you guys using that content and getting things out to people quickly is really helping in terms of, keeping that speed and keeping that interest, because I think that's a key thing for a project as well, is making sure that people don't lose interest in what it can do. And I think there's a lot of really good learning points that I think people can take away from how you guys are working there.
I mean, just a practical example of that, within the corporate team, one of the team was aware and just emailed me and said, is there an NDA there that we can use? The practical law stuff allowed me to just import it and send it to him, so within 10 minutes he could have a go at it. Historically, that wasn't the case. So in terms of where there is a bit of momentum there, the PLC stuff does let us take advantage of it, and then, as Martin said, take the best bits of it and then add Kerman's IP onto the top of it from that point of view. So I think that, for us, is where that makes a big difference in terms of where someone shows an interest is if there is something there, let's just put it in front of them pretty quickly.
And you've also extended your user licenses from a relatively small group to a slightly larger group as well. So
yeah.
It's moved in that
So
way.
it was done on a couple of user licenses for, I think it was about 9 months, and I think it's back to my people point, and then Martin got involved from that point of view and really started pushing it forward. And I think, as I say, I can't emphasize that enough. That's key from the point of view of if people don't believe in it or are willing to sort of give it that first step, then it will just sit in the shelf. In terms of, as I say, certain people come to change at different times. There's just, if people are reticent to do it, it's just a waste of everyone's sort of time and energy, really, which is very precious in a small firm.
I mean, what has the general reception been to automation? Are people positive about it?
I think it's really positive, and I think that's reflected in the fact that Graeme is getting the emails looking for more documents. The reality is, they know that they're saving time. We keep track of how long it takes to prepare each individual document. People can see that they're now preparing the engagement letters in around 10 minutes, to see the amount of time they're spending creating a first draft of the share purchase agreement or a shareholders agreement, so to see the benefits of the change in real life. And that is key to actually keeping that interest and momentum.
I think it's interesting on the reporting because that seems to be an area that people don't always use as much. But obviously, as you're saying, it's crucial to proving that this is something that works for you. So people do need to use that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think when you get a monthly email, it shows you what the cost saving to the department is. That raises a lot of eyebrows. It keeps people firmly interested. So it's quite important.
So I think now we've discussed some of the challenges and realities of actually putting in a solution. As people have gone through this journey, you've made a product selection. For people that are potentially looking at bringing in automation, what kind of advice and would you give them around choosing a solution and the things that they need to think about?
These are some of the factors that we've been told at Thomson Reuters are the most significant. I suppose the first thing that we've seen really is, you need to understand what challenges you want to use this process to address. As Graeme and Martin have talked about, are there particular areas that you can address first where you can gain quick wins and that sort of thing? But in terms of product sort of features, and given particularly that a lot of the people today will be from smaller or mid-sized firms where there's less PSL or paralegal support, it's likely that you're going to want to think about how easy the templates are to deliver. So, for example, with Contracts Express, a key feature is that you don't need any coding experience. It's really easy to just create things for you and your colleagues to use without any of that. You might also want to have the existing documents included. So we heard earlier about practical law documents. If you subscribe to practical law, being a good basis to make a start on quite quickly and see some quick wins. The user interface and usability are likely to be key as is the ability to build these suites of documents. And likewise, if you're going to be doing what we've seen about people pushing work down to paralegals or secretaries or whatever, then the workflows and the approval processes will be important. People may also be looking forward to some of the ways in which they can use the software with clients. So as we saw with the chart earlier and Kerman, how you might get people involved with that and the additional opportunities around that. But I suppose before the actual features, the issues such as how you're going to manage that implementation and change, we're told are key. So, as we've heard, having a senior figure to really steer you through that change. I don't know if that matches really with what you thought about.
I think it's broadly correct. I think one of the key reasons for us choosing Contracts Express was the pre-automated content. And particularly that it came directly from practical law. I think going back many moons ago, I used practical law as a trainee, so I'm familiar with the type of documents that the system can produce. I know the drafting notes to go with them. And so too do a lot of lawyers in my firm. In practice, we use PLC as a first port of call a lot of the time for preparing first drafts. So when you know what your end product is going to be and you know that it's going to be a usable end product, it certainly steers you towards choosing Contract Express in this case. The other big consideration for us that's not mentioned there is obviously cost. There's a number of different costs we had to look at specifically when choosing a solution. The actual annual cost, the licenses, the cost of implementing the software, getting tech people in to help us where we needed to, and obviously the opportunity cost. If someone like me is spending a couple of hours a week doing this, then I'm not billing clients, and that has a knock-on effect potentially to the firm if that work isn't passed out elsewhere. So I think they're probably the two key reasons that I see as actually being behind the choice of solution.
In terms of, I think for everyone probably listening, that cost is going to be a key part of it. And I think in terms of from a specifics point of view, the license cost is one, but just make sure you're factoring in your opportunity cost, so that's lawyer time, automator time, training time from that point of view. Depending on what you're doing, that obviously varies. It's very difficult to give a sort of exact thing. It's broad brush depending on what you're doing. But I think what you need to consider, that top one there in terms of what challenges you want to address, if you have that focus, then it's something you can really get the numbers down and pretty accurate around in terms of if you're just looking to give it a try, it's much harder that focus then can let you get into a little pilot to then get some practical numbers to then see what can happen after that. But I think, yeah, as Martin said, I think the pre-automated content does help from a terms of speed perspective, which, yeah, when it's busy, that's important.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think it's focusing on those challenges. What we sometimes see people coming in and sort of looking at automation as potentially, right from the start, rolling it out to the entire firm. And actually, it's okay to pick a particular challenge within a particular practice area, address that, and then scale up from there. Automation projects are typically quite phased projects, and I think focusing on key challenges will help you pick the right solution to manage those particular challenges. Great. Okay. So we've sort of got 15 minutes left for the session now. So let's open up to questions from some of the attendees. We've got some that have come in already. So I think first one to you, Graeme and Martin. We spoke earlier about some of the documents that you guys are automating, so around the share purchase agreement and the engagement letter. Are you able to share some of the other documents or suites that you've automated or you're thinking about automating?
Yeah, so in terms of, our shareholders agreement is technically a little suite at the moment, so there's a board minutes that's spat out at the end of that from a point of view, and I think that's something else is that suites can be N2+ from that point of view, so even that little element of the shareholders agreement. We obviously talked about the SPA. I think there's an APA suite that we can look at some point. But as I say, these will be based on need from that point of view. There's no question suites take a little bit more work from that point of view, so it's going to be definitely based on what Martin and the team are telling us of, okay, we do enough of these, this is worth it.
Yeah.
Let's put them together.
I think certainly in the short term, asset purchase suites and share purchase suites are probably going to be the key documents that we put into suite format. We may look at something in private equity, but again, workload dictates what we're looking at. In terms of immediate needs, I think for us it's really identifying what documents are used most widely in the corporate team and prioritising the automation of those documents before we actually get too heavily involved in developing suites.
And again, that's where I think the PLC link helps us slightly in terms of we have automatic stats from PLC usage of what documents people are using, which then gives us a little leg up probably in terms of what our potentials for automation after that.
Okay, so we've got a question here about your charge-out models. So obviously traditionally time is billed at an hourly rate. Now that you're using automation, are you changing your charge-out models or adapting them in some way to that?
We haven't made any changes yet. I think the reality is that if we're billing on a time basis and we're reducing the amount of time that it takes to prepare specific documents, the charge will come down with that. But again, we haven't made any specific changes to the overall model just yet.
Mm-hmm.
If we do things like develop client portals and change the way we're actually operating in terms of interaction with clients, then we might look specifically to change the overall fee structure and model structure.
So we've got one question here. It's actually from an in-house perspective, but I think it's quite applicable to where you guys started at. So what advice would you give to an in-house team embarking on a document automation project where there's no particular focused resource to dedicate to putting these projects together at this point?
It's hard in terms of it's not going to happen by itself. It's just not. So in terms of, I think from that one of if time is that, got to pick something, and even if it's an hour a week from the team to make progress, it's not a case of put it in, switch it on, and it will do it itself. And I think the only answer to that is some time has to be found. Otherwise, the benefits of it are just not going to come. But I think again, in terms of it's probably less time to get started than you think. It's that initial starting thing that tends to be the hardest. If even spending that hour a week, people see, all right, okay, there's something then to feed onto, then a bit of momentum generated, and then eventually you start to see the time not come back to you, but you're able to spend it, and you're happier to spend it because you can see the results coming out of it. But unfortunately, putting no time into it at all is just not going
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think, even if you look at different kind of outsourcing methods, so we support clients within TR who work from an in-house perspective in terms of outsourcing some of that resource. It's absolutely crucial that there is still internally within that legal team, and that goes for a law firm as well, that some time and resource is dedicated to, kind of putting that together. That's the only thing that will make it a success.
Even in your classic sort of outsourcing arrangement, you need to have a customer relationship team to make that work. The outsourcer just doesn't do everything and send you completed products. There's got to be a team managing them and measuring them and reporting back.
So we've had a few questions come through about costs. So I think, as Graeme sort of touched on earlier, there are a couple of different elements to think about when it comes to costing a document automation project. So in terms of the actual commercial model and how it's licensed, it is licensed on a per-user basis. So any user that wants to have access to the system will need a license, and there's a cost for that, which we can sort of share with your account managers. But then on top of that as well, there's the sort of the cost of kind of getting it set up that you need to think about. There's training costs to set somebody up to actually be able to automate. But then, as Graeme pointed out, you also have to think as well about the costs for your organisation. So there will be people within the organisation that will have to get involved in this, support the automators in terms of getting the documents prepared, and actually kind of verifying that those questionnaires work. So I think those are kind of the three areas of cost. You've got license costs, training costs to kind of get you up and running, and then your internal costs to kind of launch the project and get the content out to everyone. We've also got a question about a trial as well. Yes, we do have kind of a structured, I kind of call it a proof of concept, and you do benefit there from some training and some consultancy services to actually make sure that proof of concept actually is fit for purpose within what you're trying to achieve. So there is a small cost associated with that, but it is very much targeted and bespoke to your own organisation to make sure that actually you can build a business case for automation and demonstrate what a potential ROI could be. So another question we've got is about how many other firms in this space are using Contract Express. In honesty, and it'd be interesting to hear what your guys' perception is of this, but in honesty, I think what we've seen is that document automation is used more widely with the much larger law firms at this point. We are increasingly getting interest, and I think now that we've got the practical law connection and content for automation, we're getting more interest. But so far, I think smaller law firms have been a little bit afraid or not really thought that document automation is quite right for them. But I think that perception is changing in the marketplace. I mean, it'd be interesting sort of, how did you guys have that challenge of thinking it wasn't quite right for you?
I don't think so. I mean, as I say, from a managing partner perspective, Daniel's always been very supportive and pushing, just as I say, has a belief in terms of technology as a differentiator and progressing with it. I think, as I say, anecdotally, I've not heard much evidence different to what you talked about there, Catherine. You guys will obviously see a far broader range than we do, but certainly in terms of the examples that we come across in the press, it tends to be at the higher legal end rather than the smaller firms. And as I say, I mean, whether fear is part of it, I think, as I say, the time element is just much more difficult from a small firm's perspective. Of bigger firms have bigger resource in terms of and can think it much a bit more easily into projects like this. But then, as we've talked about before, there is that, if you can get started, there is that advantage in terms of being able to switch focus of what you're doing much more easily than a sort of a convoluted sort of change management process in a big firm naturally through its governance will let you do.
Yes, absolutely. And I think hopefully from hearing about your experiences today, any smaller firms that did have concerns about it can actually see that there's a real working example of it. Is it working in a non kind of international global firm? Another question here, I think, again, this is sort of coming from the inside, from the in-house side of things. So, if they're looking at doing automation, should they be drawing on their relationship with outside counsel to build these document automation projects, or should they be doing that work themselves? I think from a TR perspective, I think actually what we're seeing with existing in-house customers is that they are using their law firm relationships to work on automation. There are law firms that will offer automation services to their clients, but also they want to work collaboratively in that way to support automation projects. I mean, is that something that you can see an opportunity for yourselves in wanting to do?
I think we could certainly see a scenario where we work with in-house teams to actually help them develop specific documents, and we have in fact done that for one of our larger clients recently. So there's certainly an opportunity there, but again, it depends on the type of in-house client you're dealing with, the size of their internal legal team, and I think you're entirely right. I think in-house legal teams can leverage their external advisors, and I'm sure a lot of them would be more than happy to assist if it helps cement the relationship.
Okay, brilliant. So I think that wraps up all of our questions that we've got for now. I hope you guys found that useful and informative, and that we have inspired you to have a think about automation for your firm. Thank you very much, Graeme and Martin, for joining us and sharing your experiences. And I think that sort of wraps everything up. Thank you very much, everyone.